Hey guys, this is Miss Sebastian. We are going to go through doing some 1 and 2-step equation word problems. So there's a worksheet you can follow along, 9 questions long, and then you can also, at the end, there are some bonus questions which are maybe similar to some of the ones in the worksheet. So I'm just going to run through all of these in order, so if you need to skip ahead to any of those, feel free to do so. Let's start off with number 1. If the weight of a package is multiplied by 5/7 and the result is 40.5 pounds, find the weight of the package. Well, that's our unknown, so I'm going to make the weight of the package P, the variable. And the indicator words I see in this problem are, well, that one's obvious, multiplied by 5/7, and the result is 40.5 pounds. So the weight of the package, which is P, gets multiplied by 5/7. And I could have put the 5/7 after, but we know that the commutative property of multiplication says it doesn't matter. I can scooch it to the front. Then I go into the rest of the sentence. The result is 40.5 pounds. So the result, that's a big old equal sign when we see the words the result, equals 40.5. All right, so now I have a problem that has both a fraction and a decimal in it, and that's not any fun to work with. So we're going to want to convert to entirely one or entirely the other, either fraction or decimal. And 5/7 is not, that's not a nice decimal, so I'm going to tackle this 40.5 and convert it. So let's first make it a mixed number, so 40.5, that's 40, and, well, you could think of it as 40 and 1/2, right? And then we know in equations we don't like to have mixed numbers, they just don't work out very nicely. So let's make it an improper fraction. And the improper fraction, I do the 2 times the 40, add the 1, so that's 81/2. So let's rewrite our equation here. Okay, and now we've got this to where, hey, that's just a a one-step equation, which we can solve. So the P is being multiplied by 5/7, and so that means to get rid of the 5/7, I got to do the opposite of multiplying. I got to divide by 5/7, and I do it on both sides. And so on the left side, 5/7 cancels out on the top and bottom, leaving me with P. And on the other side, I have 81/2 divided by 5/7. So I know 81/2 divided by 5/7. That means I need to multiply by the reciprocal of this. Okay. 7/5 is the reciprocal. And so I just go ahead and do the multiplication. If you need to stop and do the math, I'm just going to do it on my calculator. Okay. All right, 567/10. And you can always go back and make it kind of a more manageable number, because this is a weird improper fraction. So you could convert that, and it would come out to be 56.7 pounds once you've converted it. So that's what you should have gotten. Okay, on the next problem, a stray dog ate 12 of your muffins. That was 3/10 of them. With how many did you start? So the indicator words here, we have of. And of generally means multiplication. So our unknown, first let's figure out what our unknown was. With how many did you start? Well, that's a good variable, the amount you started with. So the number when you started, and let's call that S. That's the amount you started with. So 3/10 of them, So that means S is getting multiplied by 3/10. And that equals 12. So 3/10 of S, the number you started with, was 12. And so we just divide by 3/10 on both sides. And we come out with S equals, and in this case it's going to be 12/1 divided by 3/10. So 12/1 times 10/3, the reciprocal. Cancel out a 3, 40/1. So my answer is 40 muffins. Okay. Next week, Julia ran 30 miles more than Pranav. Julia ran 47 miles. How many miles did Pranav run? Okay, so who should we make the variable here? Well, we don't know anything about how far Pranav ran, so P, the amount of miles run by Pranav is P. So Julia, the amount that Julia ran is 30 miles more than Pranav. 30 miles more than Pranav. That's the amount that Pranav ran, but then 30 miles more, so plus 30. And then we have another clue. The amount that Julia ran was 47 miles, so this number here is 47. So let's rewrite it, but with 47 instead. Okay, so there's our equation. Subtract 30 here. You could rewrite it if you need. And that comes out to 17 equals P. That's how much Pranav ran. Okay. Next one, 331 students went on a field trip. 6 buses were filled, and 7 students traveled in cars. How many students were on each bus? So our variable, they don't tell us how many students fit in a bus, right? So the number of students on each bus, not the total, just on each bus, let's call that B. So how many students did we have total? Well, we had 6 buses, so 6 buses, each with B students on them. So we're going to multiply. But then on top of that, we have another 7 students, so plus 7. And that's the expression for the number of students we have. Now we also know that the exact number is 331, so I'm just going to put equals 331. And now this is a two-step equation, and I have to decide, do I need to take care of the multiplication first or the addition? Which one do I get rid of first? So I just go back to good old PEMDAS. And I'm going to say, hey, normally I do multiplication before addition, right? It comes before. But I'm solving. And when I'm solving, I do everything backwards. So I'm going to rewrite my problem. And I leave a little space. So I know I have to take care of this addition first. This plus 7 has got to go. So to do that, I do the opposite, which is minus 7. And I do it on both sides. These cancel out with each other. And I get 6b, 6 times b here, equals, then you can hopefully do that in your head or on your calculator, and you're going to get 324. Then at the next step, you're going to say, okay, this 6 is still being multiplied by the b, so I need to do the opposite. Let's divide by 6. And then these cancel out, b equals, and that's going to come out to 54. So each bus holds 54 students. Next question. Aaliyah had $24 to spend on 7 pencils. After buying them, she had $10 left. how much did each pencil cost? So we don't know how much each pencil cost, so that's going to be our variable, cost of pencil, and we'll call that P. So she had $24. And then she spent some money on them, so she lost money. She subtracted the amount of money she had. And we'll come back to this, what goes right here in this blank. But then when she was done, she had $10 left. So 24 minus however much she spent gives us $10. Well, how much did she spend? The amount she spent was on 7 pencils, so that's the amount of pencils times 7, or 7p. Now what I can do here, I would like to actually flip the sign here. I have a subtraction sign. Let's make it plus a negative 7p. And then once I have addition, I can say, oh, well, the commutative property of addition allows me to flip these around. And maybe this will make it easier for me to see what to do. So now this is another two-step equation, and I have multiplication, I have addition, and from the last problem you should remember that I take care of the addition first. So the plus 24, let's subtract 24 to make it go away. Cancel, we have a cancel here, and so I am left with negative 7p equals, that comes out to negative 14. Okay, now I just have multiplication. Divide by negative 7, divide by negative 7, p equals 2. And that was $2 for one pencil. Great, let's keep going. How old am I if 400 reduced by 2 times my age is 244? So when you see a long stretch of numbers and indicator words like 400 reduced by 2 times my age, that's a lot to handle. And when you see a large phrase like this, you start from the variable right here, and you work your way out. So the variable is right here, my age. Let's call that A. And so let's not worry about the 400 yet. Let's just worry about 2 times my age. Well, 2 times my age times means multiplication, so 2 times 2a. That's 2a. Okay. Now, what is 400 reduced by 2 times my age? Or now we can just think of it as 400 reduced by 2a. So let's write 400, and reduced means minus. So we start with 400, and we made it smaller by 2 times my age, so 2a. And that equals 244. Okay, so similarly to the last problem, I can change this to minus. And then I could rearrange, but I'm going to kind of skip that step. And I'm just going to say, hey, let's subtract 400 on both sides. You could have rearranged if you really want. It doesn't make a difference. You just need to know that this 400, which is positive, cancels with this 400 because this one is negative, and you're left with negative 2a. And then on the other side, I'm going to do this math real quick, and I come out with negative 156, and now I divide by 2a on both sides because I had multiplication, so I got to do the opposite, and I'm going to come out with a, because those cancel out. Let me write it underneath. A equals, and remember, 2 negative signs cancel, so you're left with a equals 78. So I'm 78 years old. Wow, pretty old. Okay, the next problem is a little tricky. On Monday, Shanice had an unknown number of hats. Oh, well, that sounds like a perfectly good variable right there. Unknown number of hats, so that's H. Let's make a little chart here. So she has Monday, and she has H hats. Okay, what happens Tuesday? Well, she bought 5 more. So 5 more is, you take H, and you add 5 to it. That's how many she has on Tuesday. Now on Wednesday, all the hats that she had, meaning from Tuesday left over still, though half were destroyed. So what is that? Well, this is the trickiest step, or maybe one that you might be unfamiliar with. She had h plus 5, and half were destroyed. So when I take this expression here, the h plus 5, I have to half it. But I can't just half the h, and I can't just half the 5. The whole thing, h plus 5, is halved. So I'm going to take the whole thing and put it over 2. So now she has h plus 5 over 2 on Wednesday. Okay, so then she gets to Thursday. She still has this amount, h plus 5 over 2. Okay, and at this point, there are only 17. So if there are, or if there were 17, that's just equals 17. Now notice for this problem, even though I made a chart, I do not need to add up the h and the h plus 5 like we might have done in another problem, because this number of hats is currently it's changing day to day. So I'm going to take, when she wakes up to Thursday morning, this is the amount of hats she has. I don't have to go back and worry about this amount or this amount, but I could find them if I wanted. If I asked you, instead of how many did she have on Monday, I could say, well, Tuesday, we could go back and plug those in. But as far as the equation's concerned, right here, this is good to go. She wakes up on Thursday, she has h plus 5 over 2, and the problem tells you that that number is 17. Okay, now for order of operations here, remember when we have big division signs like this, we form a group on the top and a group on the bottom. So order of operations for this problem normally would be that we first do the addition on top because it's in a little group. It's in the parentheses. And then secondly, step 2 would be to actually do the division. So when we're solving, what do? Well, you undo step 2 first. So we have h plus 5 divided by 2. What do? We multiply by 2. So let me rewrite the problem. Let me scooch over a little. H plus 5 over 2 equals 17. And both sides get multiplied by 2, which is the same as 2 over 1. Not that that's a big deal. Okay, so those cancel out. And dividing by 1's like doesn't change anything. So I just have h plus 5 equals, okay, and I do my multiplication here. And that's what I get at this stage. And now I say, well, what do I do next? I have h plus 5. Well, that's easy. Minus 5 minus 5. So h equals 29. That's what h is. And what did we make h originally? H was the number of hats we had on Monday. So the question was, how many did she have on Monday? Well, 29 hats. It's that simple. Number 8, Jill sold half of her comic books and then bought 16 more. She now has 36. With how many did she begin? So Jill had, she sold half of her comic books. So if you sold half, you take the number you have, you divide it by 2. And our variable, well, we don't know how many she started with. That's what they're asking. That's a perfectly good variable. So we could do C. C is the number she started with is C. So first it says Jill sold half her comic book. So she took C and she said, I'm going to split that right in half. C over 2. Another way, you technically, or you definitely could say 1/2 times C. That's also acceptable. I'm going to stick with the first one that I wrote. Okay, so once she got rid of half, well, then she went and bought 16 more, so that's plus 16. And the plus 16 does not go on top of the fraction. She took this C plus 2. She took the amount once she sold half, then she added 16. So the order that the actions are performed in the problem can help you figure out how to set up the problem and perform the order of operations. All right, once she bought 16 more, she has 36. So if we look at normal of order of operations, normally the division would come first, addition second, so we know we're going to take care of this addition first by doing the opposite. So rewrite the problem, and minus 16 on both sides. These cancel, c over 2 equals 20. And then c is being divided by 2, so both sides get multiplied by 2. So these cancel. You're left with c equals 40. That was simple. Okay, number 9. Similarly, 140, Super Bouncy Ball is playing horseshoes at her school's game night. Later, she gave 2 to each of her friends. She only has 8 bouncy balls remaining. How many friends does she have? So let's, f can be our variable, because how many friends does she have? So friends equals f. Okay, so she started off with 40 bouncy balls, and then she gave 2 to each of her friends. So is her amount getting larger or smaller? It's going to get smaller. So we're subtracting. And how much are we subtracting? We're subtracting, we're subtracting the number of balls she gave away, right? And how many did she give away? Well, she took her number of friends, and she said, I'm going to give 2 to each of you, so that's 2 times f. That's how many she gave away. So we take 40 minus 2 times f, and that equals 8, because that's how many she had left. At this stage, we can flip the subtraction sign, okay? And so I'm going to rewrite the problem, but I'm going to switch the terms around. Negative 2f, we don't need the multiplication sign, plus 40 equals 8. Subtract 40 on both sides. I forgot to leave a space. Shame on me. Okay. Subtract 40 on both sides. Okay. So that's negative 32, negative 2f, divide by negative 2, and I get f equals, and that's going to cancel out the signs, 16. 16 friends. Okay, on to the bonus problems, which are from your quizzes. Linda and Carl planted 105 flowers together this weekend. Linda did more of the work since she planted 1.5 times what Carl planted. How many flowers did each one plant? So we have Carl and Linda. And who do they tell us? They tell us a lot about Linda, right? She planted 1.5 times what Carl planted. So that times, that's an important indicator word. But we don't know anything really about what Carl planted, so let's just put C. He's the variable. That's how many Carl planted, C. Now Linda did 1.5 times. Well, that's pretty obvious. 1.5 times C, times what Carl planted. And we know that well, we should have an improper fraction. Right now it's a mixed number. Those don't go well in equations. So what I'm going to do is convert that. 1 and 1/2 is just 3/2 times C. Okay. And then this first sentence is a good indicator that together, oh, that tells me a lot. That tells me addition is what I'm doing. So C plus 3/2 C equals 105. Okay, at this point, I need to combine like terms. I have a term with C and a term with C. But this one doesn't have a coefficient. Well, it does, but it's kind of invisible. So if I just have C, I should know that's 1C. And so if I have 1C and 3/2 C, I know that I just need to add 1 and 3/2 to get the total number of C's that I have. So what's 1 and 3/2? Well, 1, oh man, these don't have common denominators. So I would have to turn the 1 into 2 over 2, right? That's equal to 1. Now I can add up nicely. So 1 plus 3/2 turns into 2 over 2 plus 3/2, and so that's 5/2. And that's when I add these two coefficients together. So that's how many C's I have. 5 halves times c equals 105. And then you just divide both sides by 5 halves. It's as simple as that. Those cancel. C equals, okay, you take the 105 over 1, and we're going to multiply by the reciprocal. Cancel out a 5, I get 21 once I cancel that out. And so I get C equals 42, which is 21 times 2, giving me 42. So Carl planted 42, and then Linda planted 3 halves that. So I can take the 42 over 1 and multiply it by 3 halves. She did 21 times 3, so that's 63 over 1, or just 63. So Linda did 63. Okay, last problem. Last problem is really similar to one we did. I think it was 8, maybe? Oop, let me scroll back up. Ellen had some cans of tea. Okay, let's make that our variable. So tea for how many cans of tea she had. So that's on Monday. Tea. On Tuesday, she drank 5. So tea, then she subtracted 5. Wednesday, she gave away half of what she had left. That's t minus 5, and then divide the whole thing by 2. On Thursday, there were 12 left. So when she wakes up on Thursday, she still has this amount right here, and we're told that it's 12. So t minus 5 over 2 equals 12. I'm going to run through this real quick since we did one similar to this. Multiply both sides by 2, and you're left with, these cancel out, so t minus 5 equals 24. T, add 5 to both sides. She started with 29. Okay, that's it. So hopefully this helped you with how to do word problems that involve two-step equations. Good luck, guys.